Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of RiesKitchen. Today we're going to be making a traditional seafood paella, or in Australian, paella. There's a few ingredients and some of them are specialty, but it's not a hard recipe at all. I was lucky enough to learn how to do this in Barcelona over a decade ago, and it's become an absolute family favourite, and I'm sure it will of yours too. So let's get straight into it. Some of the ingredients I will talk about in more detail, but first up we have some mussels, some firm white fish, in this case it's snapper, some king prawns, calamari hood, the specialty bomba rice, some pimento, garlic and saffron, onion and tomato, peas, some fish stock, in this case mussel stock, olive oil and a lemon to serve. So let's talk about the rice. So today I'm using bomba rice. There are 3 varieties of rice that work for paella: bomba, calspara and valencia. I find here in Australia that bomba and calspara, sometimes you can find them in the supermarket or in Spanish specialty stores, but if you can, it will make a world of difference. This rice has a really small grain, and it's also not as starchy as a borio, which at a pinch you could easily swap with. It's not going to give you the creaminess that you get with a borio in risottos, and that's because of the kind of grain. It will change your paella if you do not use the right kind of rice, but always keep it as short a grain as possible. Maximum absorption of all the flavours then. And as you can see, it's quite a small little grain. Now let's talk about the paella pan. So this is my small paella pan. It will serve 2 to 3, which is what we're going to be using today. They come in a variety of sizes, all the way up to ones that are like this size. If you don't have a paella pan, you can just use a large skillet or sauce or fry pan. What you want is the maximum spread of your rice to absorb the liquid without it being too deep. That way you get an even absorption of your rice. And as you can see, this one's only about 5 centimetres high. Paella is one of those dishes that everything happens at once, so you really do need to do all your prep at the beginning. So first up, I'm going to prep my mussels. As always, I'm just going to check. This one's a little bit open, and I'm just going to tap it to make sure that it's still a healthy mussel, because you always check before you cook them, not after. And that's closing down nicely now. He's just hungry. So let's just pop all of our mussels. That one needs a tap too. Yeah, there we go. Pop all of our mussels in some water, and this is just so that they'll open up and release some of the salt and grit, and we'll debeard them in a little bit. Just give them a few minutes. So then I'm going to get our lovely piece of snapper here, and I just want, my fishmonger has already skinned and deboned it for me, and all I want to do now is just cut it into some bite-sized pieces. Now for the calamari. Now when I was in Barcelona and learned how to make this, we used cuttlefish, but you can't buy that in Australia. So a calamari hood is what I'm going to use. And I know lots of people will cut this into rings, but I'm going to do it the way that we were taught, which means that I'm just going to dice it into a fine dice. Now to prep our tomatoes. Now this is a trick that I learnt in Barcelona, is I'm just going to cut my tomatoes in half, and then I'm actually going to grate them. You can grate them on the fairly coarse part of your grater, but by doing so you're just going to get all the lovely pulp, and you're going to be left with the skin, which we'll discard. Now the last ingredient I want to talk about is pimento. This absolute amazing spice is made in the Basque region of Spain. You could use paprika, of course. Now, most Australian paellas have chorizo in it. If you're going to add chorizo in here, which of course you always can, you'd omit the pimento. You'd get the same flavours out of your chorizo sausage. So our first step in cooking is to bring our stock up to a simmer. I'm using mussel juice, which I have gained as I have steamed mussels in the last few weeks and popped it in the freezer, which means this is quite salty. If you're not using mussel juice, and you might need to add some salt through your dish towards the end. I'm just going to pop that into my pot. Just a little bit of grit that I'm just going to keep out. And I'm going to pop my saffron in there as well, and as the stock warms up, it will just start to colour and help give us that wonderful colour that we all know paella has. So I'm going to put it on a medium heat to start with, and we'll just set that aside until we're ready. Paella pans are quite thin, so this is heating up very quickly. So I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil. You can see it's already, and I'm just going to pop my prawns in. So now I'm just going to turn them over. So now, as they're nice and pink on both sides, just pull them out. So into that same oil, I'm now going to pop in our onion and our squid, and I'm just going to gently fry these until the onion starts to caramelise. So my onions have softened up nicely, and they're just all starting to get a little bit of colour. I'm going to throw my peas in, and you can probably hear that my stock has just come to that simmer, so I'm just going to turn it down one notch. I'm just going to fry this for another minute. So now into our pan, I'm going to add our crushed garlic and our tomato pulp. And we're going to cook this around until the liquid that you can see that's coming off the tomato pulp has evaporated. Alright, so most of the liquid has gone from my pan. So now I'm going to add my pimento, my snapper, and now we're adding in our dry rice, and again a quick stir to coat the rice grains. So turning off my stock, I'm going to add it all in one hit. Now quick stir. I'm going to turn that up on high for 5 minutes and let it bubble away. So now let's prep our mussels in readiness. So we just need to debeard them. So point end to the top and just drag down. There we go. Grab the beard and pull. Oh, such a pity you guys aren't in the room. The aroma coming off this pan is just fabulous. So now I've got my debearded mussels, and I'm just going to bury them in a little into my pan. Now the mussels will release some more liquid in just to help that cooking. I'm going to turn the pan down just a little bit, and we're going to cook for another 3 to 5 minutes with the mussels as they start to open. So now we should be able to see that there's still a little bit of liquid, but the majority of the liquid has been absorbed. And so I'm now going to pop our gorgeous prawns on top. I like to put the heads in the middle, but you can do it whichever way you like. And you can see there that the mussels have started to open and just releasing their extra juices. Now before we turn the heat off, do a final quick test to make sure that your rice is cooked, which mine is. And I'm going to turn the heat off. And now I need to let it just sit for about 5 minutes just to firm up and absorb that last little bit of water or stock. Gosh, this is delicious. And as always, the hard bit's in the wait. Now for all the details of today's recipe, don't forget to check out my blog in the link below. But as always, the best bit's in the eating. Now in any fine Spanish restaurant, they will always bring you the paella pan to your table and carefully place your prawn and your mussels around. So as you can see, we're in a high quality establishment here. But with a little squeeze of lemon. Golly gee, this is a smashing dish. The seafood just shines. The flavours that pop through, it is truly amazing, and I'm sure your family will love it. Until next time everybody, ciao.